Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo post-game show presented by West Herr. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my two very handsome partners in crime, Anthony Prohaska and Aaron Quinn. Aaron, your header says live from the Ralph. What was it like tonight, man? What a party. This had to be awesome.
This is one of the best nights I've had. I had season tickets for years, and we never had primetime games. It was like pre-drought. So I have not experienced primetime at Ralph Wilson or Highmark Stadium. I've done it at other stadiums. Man, the rain's coming in now, but we had an absolute perfect night here in Western New York. What a party from start to finish. The place was rocking. MVP chants coming raining down from everywhere. Just an absolute party in Western New York. And you know what, guys? We deserve nights like this.
Anthony, you were superstitious. You didn't even text me back during the show. So even when the team was up 40-10, I think when I text you, you still stayed true to it. I respect it. How was it enjoying all of this tonight?
It was good. And in my head, I was like, he knows that I saw it, but I'm not going to respond. And I was like, it'll be okay. And yeah, the last time I sent a text during a game, I think it was 2012, CJ Spiller busts off I sent the text, CJ Spiller busts off a big run against the Browns. He gets tackled from behind, falls down, busts his shoulder. And so I committed from then and there. Tonight was really fun. I started to feel bad for the Jags, and then I kind of got bored with how the game went. And I was kind of like, Washington and Cincinnati looks kind of fun. I kind of want to turn over to that game, which is awesome. Trevor Lawrence and Josh Allen both sitting basically for almost half the fourth quarter because the game was out of hand. Man, it's just good energy, good atmosphere, good times. I'm pumped to be here on the post game. This is a fun one. Yeah, man, great night.
Was that the quickest third quarter ever?
Oh,
dude,
it went so fast.
Both teams were ready for this to be done tonight. So some details for everybody. Everyone who's joining us here, you are listening in because the Buffalo Bills have dispatched the Jacksonville Jaguars 47-10 in an absolute throttling. This was a Patriots playoff game-esque start. They scored a touchdown on their first 5 possessions of the game. Sam Martin didn't have to make an appearance until late in the game and then had a lovely punt on the one punt that he did have. We'll get into Mr. Josh Allen's stat line and everything that's there for right now, the easy MVP favorite for this NFL season. But tonight was a night where literally everything was clicking on all cylinders. We had 2 aggressive fourth down decisions by Sean McDermott early in this game in the first quarter, 4th and 3 or longer, like a not coin flip or not easy analytical decisions. Josh Allen was as precise as we have seen him. This was the overall perfect everybody eats menu. 10 different guys catching the pass. I believe 9 different guys caught a pass in the first half. The run game was working well. The overall stats are going to be a little muted because we were just kind of ramming into a stacked box at the end of the game, milking the clock. So the raw numbers are only 4.2 yards per carry, but they were much better than that earlier in the game. The defense was dominant. Von Miller with a sack for his 3rd straight game. Pressure coming from all over the place. Multiple turnovers. Ends up with 5 sacks, 9 quarterback hits. The Bills had caused 2 turnovers with an interception and a Casey Tuhill fumble recovery on a Javon Solomon forced fumble. This was just the kind of game that it's going to be hard to pick who to even give credit to because so many guys played so well. All phases played really well. Nice returns from Ty Johnson and Brandon Codrington. Really, really rare to have a game as special as what this ended up. So, Anthony, just what stood out to you? What was the top, element that if you had to pick what we start with, what was the first thing that stood out to you?
Oh man, how good the Bills' offensive game plan was. And just
Joe Brady.
Yeah, Joe Brady. And I think tying into that, especially from both sides of the ball for the Jags, was just how bad the Jags game plan was. Offensively in the first half, everything was just, everything is outside the numbers. You're not really making the run go anywhere. And they even saw that, I know second half was different, but their first drive, really first couple to come out of the second half, Lawrence is hitting the middle of the field. They're working the seams. And I was just like, where was this early on? And then I know the defensive side, injuries, they're banged up on the back end. We all know this. And so maybe it's hard to play zone as well. But all the man they were running, and that ties into what Brady was doing. You know, Jacksonville is the highest, I believe, in the league in terms of man coverage and cover one specifically through the first 2 weeks in the league. Versus Miami, it worked really well in week one. What they were doing with robbers and whole players and who was coming from where. But then Campbell goes down, Savage goes down, and you come into this game, and it was early. The very first play, the Bills are just using motion pre-snap to identify man, and then Allen hits Cook right away. And we saw that consistently. They're just running crossers. They're running rail routes. They're sending Cook on rail routes through the B gap. They're just taking advantage of man coverage left and right. And it was just such a good game plan from the Bills, kind of, okay, we think they're going to do this. Oh, sweet, they are doing it. Let's keep throwing some wrinkles in there to make sure we can identify it pre-snap and then hammer them. And then you tie in the play action. It was just a really well-curated game plan, especially from the offensive side of the ball by Joe Brady. Good execution by Allen and really everyone on offense. And then tying into that, yeah, just how lost Jacksonville looked. You talked about these numbers and how dominating it was. Whenever you see a game like this, it's a little bit of both, right? One team did great, but it also means another team probably did absolutely terrible. And we got a good mix of that in this game. But yeah, just a great performance from the Bills offense.
Aaron, do you think Khalil Shakir will ever not catch a ball that comes to him?
Or get yards after catch. Like he just does
or not create more yards after he catches every single ball that ever gets thrown to him?
Yeah, it's becoming a consistent thing. I think that was a concern of ours right after last year was, can we give him more workload and still see the same type of production? And I think the answer is yes. Like, I think that he can be that type of guy. But to piggyback off Ant, like, they came out and were really stressing the Jaguars, sort of that horizontal, like, get out, quick outs, get it. But then 2 drives later, they're pushing the ball down the field as soon as Jacksonville comes up. Like, Joe Brady, absolutely in his bag tonight. And Khalil Shakir, a big part of that. But the defense, I don't think – like, we're going to talk a lot about the offense. The statistics are gaudy. I had Josh Allen in a couple fantasy leagues. Like, I was actually
I had Josh Allen and Khalil Shakir. I needed those two, and I was playing Trevor Lawrence and Christian Kirk and needed like that combo to win. I won by a lot.
Yeah, one of my wife's leagues that I actually run for her, we only had like a 5% chance to win going in tonight, but I had Allen, Cook, and Shakir. Wow. And I'm pretty sure we're winning right now. I haven't checked live, but I'm pretty sure we came back and won. And they'll get all the conversation tonight. But it really, even though Jacksonville's offense and the game plan didn't look good, the way Sean McDermott has this defense with pieces at linebacker, not having starting pieces there, safeties that still are kind of depth rotational safeties, really still with DeMar Hamlin stuff, and what he's able to do, not having Taron Johnson, not having Terrell Bernard, and Doug Peterson having a week to scheme up against that and attack it. And they came out and absolutely just had the number of the Jacksonville Jaguars, winning in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Just Greg, you and I talked about this, like everything optics wise shaped up for this to be a perfect opportunity for a trap game. And then when we saw all the 0-2 teams yesterday, the way they played, coming out desperate, backs against the wall, I didn't feel great. But we talked about, like, you can't trap to this team. And I think that message was received loud and clear in the Bills locker room on every phase.
And I mentioned that too on Wednesday night, was that the one thing I was clinging to is the Jags had given us the business. Like 3 of the last 4 games, we had, and the one in London, there was some weird stuff there, and that was a good, talented team. But that Urban Meyer team was one of the worst teams in the league, and we were supposed to go in and dominate. And the one thing that gave me confidence was Sean McDermott was going to throw that in their face all 10 days between the Thursday night game and now. He was going to say, hey, remember when you guys thought you were just going to walk in there and they were going to roll over for you? Well, they didn't. So you got to show up and take care of business. And I love that he had that ammo to really, throw at them. And that's what gave me confidence. Aaron, I don't normally make those kind of predictions for big, multi-touchdown wins, but that's what gave me confidence in this one, is that I really felt like we were going to be able to come in there. I knew we were the better team. I knew, most importantly, we could dominate both sides of the line of scrimmage. was the biggest part I felt good about, was that, hey, our interior defensive line is going to get pressure there, and they're going to get opportunities to get around the edge. Anton Harrison had been really poor so far. I was worried they might keep up scoring a little bit more in the middle with Christian Kirk and Etienne out of the backfield stuff. So kudos to what they put together. Anthony, I can't wait for you and Eric to show maybe some of the stuff that the combinations of Cam Lewis and Balin Spector and Dorian Williams did to kind of keep that under wraps, under control. But this defensive line is going to be a problem for so many teams, and it's just really, really exciting to see what's coming together. Let's step back a little bit.
Von Miller was going to be back. If only somebody was out there telling us.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for it.
Ready to get a sack per game.
Yeah, no big deal. We're going to give all of Von Miller's money back, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be the most well-earned contract in NFL history. It's going to be unbelievable.
Real quick side note, not Bills related. Did Cincy just lose?
The Commanders just scored to go up 38-26 with 2:10 left. The Cincinnati Bengals are about to be 0-3, and they let the Washington Commanders come into their stadium and put up 38.
Especially after Cam Taylor-Britt was like, yeah, they're a college offense. You know, Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah.
Like, oh, man.
Jaden Daniels just put up a boatload on them. Fun things. So let's give a little bit of shine here. We've talked, overall about coaching. We've talked about the defense. Josh Allen was on one tonight. I also shout out, I know Eric made a couple good comments. Anthony, you said the same thing on Twitter tonight. It was so refreshing to have a genuine football conversation about the football on your screen between Louis Riddick and Dan Orlovsky on the game today. If I could pay to listen to them every game, they weren't telling corny stories. They weren't filling time. They weren't making it clearly obvious that you didn't know the roster all that well, which we hear every single week.
Didn't say, here's a guy.
It was such an informed, intelligent discussion about what we were watching, and you could tell how prepared they were. And to hear Dan Orlovsky, who I believe when he says this, say, I've watched every snap of Josh Allen as a professional, and tonight was the best football I've ever seen him play, he's not Chris Sims. He's not a guy who goes like crazy hyperbolic with that kind of stuff all the time. To hear Dan Orlovsky say that really speaks to how incredible Josh was. 23 of 30, so 76% completion percentage, 263 yards, 8.8 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks, 142 quarterback rating. Added another 6 carries for 44 yards with 7.3, and I think 3 really intelligent, smart slides where he never put himself at risk. He was as in command and under control as I've ever seen. And, you've spent so much time breaking down all the different pieces of it. Are we going to look back that, well, we were probably a little hyperbolic, or is this really a level we haven't quite seen him reach before?
I think we're in a legit realm of the conversation of a level that we haven't seen him reach before. And it's because of the combination of the athleticism and like the mutant unicorn alien nature that he has, but he's also just playing super efficient and making really good decisions. Tonight he had a 0.72 EPA per play, which is nuts. So like,
I was just gonna say, help people understand the reference of what that means compared to other players, because that's insane.
It's insane. So like, it just to put in perspective, like for people, like EPA is expected points added. So he was at 0.72. So on a per play basis, he was adding almost 3/4 of a point on every single play for him in that game. That's insane. Like if you get someone who's at like 0.5, like, wow, that's crazy. He was almost.
I was just gonna say, like an MVP season in previous years, that's the kind of level you're talking about.
Yeah,
like when someone has an MVP season is not even at 0.5.
Yeah, like you're flirting. Yeah, not even at that. Like you're like, for example, like everybody knows how the Ravens crushed the Cowboys, right? That first half, Lamar on the ground, like 5 rushes, 100% success rate, all this stuff. His EPA per rush just in that half, Lamar, was 1.13. So he crushed everything on the ground. It was just at 1.13. Allen's overall everything was 0.72. And then he did that with an average depth of target of 5.8. So this wasn't, well, he's just, got all these, heavy chunk completions and he's slinging the ball downfield. He was making efficient throws underneath. He was taking the early profit, getting the balls out to guys underneath and letting them run after catch. We saw yards after catch in general for these guys, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Like, we just saw him making good decisions and putting the ball in place. And that, I think, is the next step to him kind of evolving to this next Super Saiyan level that he's at or approaching, because the athleticism is there, the craziness is there, the ability to just shake free of pressure, stiff arm dudes, hurdle dudes, whatever, the laser rocket arm. But now, like, just pairing it with the decision making and taking what defenses give him, and then adding on top of that, yes, and adding on top of that, Joe Brady with all the motion and play action and shifts and all the pre-snap identification help. It's just like, and then the run game is also good, both with Allen on and off script and with the running backs. So then when you put it all together, it's really scary. But just focusing in on Allen, he's just pairing, like, it's always been the yin and yang of Josh Allen, but the yin has gone away for the beginning of this year, and it's just all positive return.
We knew this was coming, though, right? When people started talking trash about Josh Allen this offseason, right? Like, that's the kind of dude he is.
Well, but you take in, Aaron, we've talked about where people ask me a lot about, Josh Allen, especially I'm never in Buffalo and Western New York as often. So it's normally people who don't watch all the time and they just hear a lot of the national media pieces or the different parts of it. So they'll ask a lot of questions and, like, I don't want to get annoyed because they're well intended when they're asking. And I'll say, it's not that he's not like some dummy. It's just that sometimes he feels like he has to put the cape on and has to be the hero to win the game, so that he tries to make these superhero plays all the time. And when you see yourself do it, honestly, like 70% of the time, I'd probably think I could do it 100% of the time too. And that, 30% of the time when he tries to do the crazy heroic thing, it doesn't go well. And we just accept it as a package deal because that's what Josh Allen is. And he's an awesome package and we'll take it. Well, now, if you give him the confidence and the comfort and the peace of mind that he doesn't have to put the cape on all the time, and that he can trust his offensive line, and he can trust his run game, and he can trust the sequencing and the timing of play calls to set himself up well, then all of a sudden he can slide and he doesn't have to barrel through 3 defenders. He can take the check down because he's not worried that, if I don't take this chunk play right now, I might not get the play call I want to go for it the next time. And that I'm just going to have to force it now. So it's not that we're seeing some, crazy level of play that we've never seen from him. It's that he's never been able to play with any level of peace of mind and trust that, I don't have to be the guy every single play. And we saw the other version of it against Miami, where he literally didn't have to be, like, for the first time in a long time, he wasn't the biggest part of a victory. Like, I can't tell you the last time where he wasn't like the driving factor.
And that's what's awesome. Think about it. Like, if you're the Bills, right, you can look how you just win in different weeks. Like week 1, things kind of get away from you a little bit. He puts the cape on a bit. Week 2, he just sits back and coasts and the defense does all this stuff. Week 3, he puts on the cape again, but efficiently and different.
But he's like the conductor. He's like the symphony conductor.
Yes. And you're just winning in different ways, like on both sides of the ball. And it's just so fun.
The wins don't count if we run the ball a lot. I think that's what I heard.
I've been told.
Don't count the same. It's only half a win.
Tonight, but it's okay. I just checked. It was 31 passes and 29 runs. So it was technically more passes. So tonight counts. So Aaron, they were talking a lot on there. I think Aaron Schatz actually had a tweet that he put out, and both Orlovsky and Louis Riddick were talking a lot about how, like, what a legitimate playoff atmosphere it was, how they don't know if any fans had sat down the entire game, and they're saying this like in the fourth quarter stand with backups in and things like that. You talked early on about what that feeling was like there. Did it really feel like that kind of energy from those kind of games with the fans in person?
Yes, I am going to humble brag for a second because I was in the suite. So with all
shout out to West Herr and William Matar, awesome sponsors and partners here. Appreciate that they invited me as well. I would have loved to have joined Aaron, but I'm very jealous but happy that Aaron got to go enjoy it with them.
William and Tar. That was super cool. But no, we had the windows open, and it was a super cool atmosphere, man. Like I said, never done the night game. They shut down the lights. Like, people got all excited when they came out. And that excitement, luckily, the Bills gave that reason to stay that way, right? Like you said, it was similar to the Patriots game of just drive after drive and making them go 3 and out and getting the ball back and scoring again. And you didn't have a chance to sit down. The game just had electric plays happening sort of all throughout. And it really, I kept using the word party. Like, it was a celebration of really fantastic football and Josh Allen in Western New York tonight. And I think the fans deserve that, because there has been a lot of talk about him being overrated or whatever it is about this team, and we're going to miss Diggs, and you need the number one wide receiver. And this was the perfect example of not. And what this team has said all off season, and that it isn't everybody's situation. And yeah, everybody was cheering. And the thing you would see is all those different touchdowns, everybody getting the ball. Everybody's like, there goes this guy. I love that guy. I love Ty Johnson. I love this. And it really is, it's that vibe right now here. And I think I didn't get to listen to the entire broadcast, but something that came up at the end of the broadcast when I was walking back to my car that they were talking about in getting, the work that they do pre-production of getting to talk to the team and do stuff like that, of being around a team that is so caring about each other. And you saw that, I think, on display, and the community's part of that. And the community feels that, and they feed off this team probably more so than any place. But yeah, this is as close to a playoff atmosphere as I've seen, especially being September.
So, and I think it was really cool. They talked about that, all the culture pieces you were just referencing, and the fact that they were joking about, I think Von Miller was saying there's no hookah bars to go to at 1 a.m. or something. I wasn't familiar with that, but he's not wrong. Like, there is a piece of it where football is the number one thing here, and it's why they, specifically pitch and recruit to family guys and people who want to bring their families here and be able to be in a happy, clean environment to be able to focus on football and do what you need to do. And when you add the right people here who want to do that, you can have something really special. And one of the things that I want to focus on here is a group that I think has been, like, people are slowly coming around. Oh, maybe it's pretty good, but then there's some questions here or there. And we gave out a big contract to a guy that people weren't sure if he was quite ready. Well, tonight you have this unbelievable offensive performance where neither of our quarterbacks got touched a single time. No one even sniffed or got near Josh Allen. I'm going to see. I don't know if they
was Hines Allen playing tonight, because I hear.
He had one tackle for a loss on a run play that I did notice him once. They technically marked one guy. They gave Mason Smith one quarterback hit on one play, but no sacks. One quarterback hit. I don't remember Josh being flushed from the pocket all that often. We ran the ball at will in the first half, and then even in the second half, when they knew what was coming, still converted a couple first downs. There's some nice Ray Davis runs and some nice Ty Johnson runs. Anthony, do you think this offensive line is going to start maybe getting a little bit more of the credit it deserves?
I think Louis Riddick during the game called them the best offensive line in football, or said they're one of the best, right? Like, he said something along those lines that I was like,
yes, for sure, one of.
Yes.
I think that's how I phrased it.
Okay. And also, great point by you earlier too. Like, him and Orlovsky were great. And I think it was awesome having an offensive mind like Orlovsky paired with a defensive mind like Louis Riddick, so they could each speak on both sides of the ball. And Riddick has been covering a bunch of the Hurricanes games this year for college. So I listen to him like every week. And so he's been awesome. So it's great to see. And yeah, when he put that praise on there, I was like, oh, like, maybe they will start to get some more recognition. And they're a really good unit. I know I had a lot of questions for them coming into the year, just because I thought last year's group was so good with pass pro and then run game diversification. And I'm like, no, like, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
And even though I was okay with McGovern and I like David Edwards, I think more than it seemed like a lot of the fan base was worried about David Edwards, but we were a lot of us had this conversation with each other. Like, this was a starting dude under Cromer and also helped win a Super Bowl with the Rams. Like, this dude is more
the Rams won the Super Bowl with him starting every single game. So it's obviously possible.
Yeah. And he's a good dude.
Here. Jeff said that he did say it was the best line.
That's what. So I was.
Best line
I didn't want to overstep. That's what I thought. I thought he said they're the best, like the best offensive line in football. And I was like, whoa, like that's That's
I don't know if I'm ready for that, but it's cool that
Yes.
Louis Riddick's smarter about football than I am. So if
I'll take
Louis
it.
Riddick said it,
Yeah.
if I can get Brandon Thorne to say it, then I'll really be locked in. If I can get Brandon to say it.
Yeah, like get some more people on board with that. And that's like, to even make that kind of statement is wild, because you look at what the Eagles are when they're healthy, what the Detroit Lions have. There's some really tremendous offensive lines out there, but I think it goes back to just seeing what they did tonight, what they've been able to do in pass protection, and then being able to also function in the run game, but in a multitude of ways. You can run zone, you can run gap scheme stuff. We've seen them with the tackle wrap stuff and duo. They can run some counter and get some dudes on the move at different levels. And I think what also helped tonight, I want to see the numbers, which they're not up yet. They went a lot more play action tonight than they have in the first 2 games. Only 7 reps of play action the first 2 games, but they had a crazy, I should go back and find the tweet that I put out, but they had like the best EPA per pass from a play action standpoint going into week 2. And I wanted to see what that would look like going forward, how much they would press that button. They pressed it a lot tonight. So you have this good offensive line, and then you're forcing them to play the run on the way to the pass regularly. And it just felt like Jacksonville never really got the opportunity to pin their ears back and really come after the Bills. So you're pairing good dudes with good technique and good fundamentals and understanding, along with the schematics of it, which, going into Greg, when you mentioned the London game last year, that was the opposite. The Bills were seeing regular 3rd and longs and known passing situations, and Jacksonville was just Jacksonville was just gaming them up left and right. Tonight, they stayed on schedule for pretty much the entirety of the game. And then whenever they did get a little something, Allen just bailed out the offensive line and made a play. But really, they were in lockstep, in unison with one another, really from the jump throughout the entirety of the game, and then the play action tying into it. Yeah, it was a nice, comfortable night for Allen back there. Multiple times where he was just sitting there being like, no, okay, I'll go there. Like, just winding the clock, like waiting.
Yeah. I think it was the last touchdown in the first half when he was down there. I think it was the one that ended up, I don't know if it was to Ty Johnson or what it was. He pat the ball like 5 times.
Yeah,
so, like
that was to Ty Johnson.
Yeah. He just sat there forever, and eventually was like, "Oh, okay." There's like it was like out of literally his 5th read, but like he was just hanging out. He could have made a sandwich. It was just having a good time.
Real quick, so I found it. I wanted to grab that tweet. So going into week 2, the Bills' EPA per pass on play action was 0.86. So almost a full expected point added on every play action rep, but they were tied for last in the amount of play action passes at 7. Obviously, they leaned into that a bit more tonight.
I was going to say, well, and I'll even, like, some of the stuff is skewed, especially early on, because we were winning by so much against the Dolphins. They didn't need to show anything else in that game. So tonight opened it up a little more. And even tonight is going to skew it a little bit because we didn't have to do anything in the second half. They were able to kind of dial it back again to show it early.
Yes. And to be able to have that clip of like 0.86, I was like, okay, how much is that going to normalize once they start to add more sample size and volume? But tonight might not really bring down the score, because
it might have gone up. It might have gone up.
Yeah. If the Bills defense wasn't as good as it's playing right now, like Josh Allen, the way he's playing and as good as he's playing this season, like could easily have dropped 500-600 yards tonight. Like if they had to go score for score the way he's going, like if he had to keep playing, it's just, I don't know where the ceiling is of what he can do.
Oh yeah.
That's a fair point.
So we've gone through a couple things. We'll get to our drive-by-drive here, but we're having a good time. Everybody that's in here, we appreciate you guys. A lot of really generous, contributions made. Press that like button. It really helps us out. Let other people know that you're having a good time listening here tonight. The receiving core I mentioned earlier, everybody eats literally the definition of it. 10 different players caught a pass, but I really liked the utilization at the top. Khalil Shakir, James Cook, Dalton Kincaid. Those are the 3 guys that led the team in targets. They had 6 for Shakir, 5 for Cook, 5 for Kincaid, and really smartly, utilizing them in those key spots. Khalil Shakir, I know it's kind of picked up some steam now, calling him, the pinball wizard, and just bouncing around after these plays. His contact balance is unbelievable, and just doing it again tonight. He actually took some of the hardest hits I can remember. I was nervous a couple times where I was like, God, he took some really tough shots, but just kept going and kept going and kept going. I love James Cook utilization in the past game. He did have another one that he probably could have got a touchdown on, but still looked really, really nice. And just having 10 different guys get the ball, everybody is going to be happy, and you can't really ask for more.
Yeah, it was a nice performance to see. You talked about kind of like the spreading around and everything, and having 10 different guys with a reception and a target. But so you get that kind of target dispersion and you get the balance that you're looking for. But then, Greg, you mentioned like Shakir and Kincaid and Cook leading the way. And I love that was also a function really of the game plan and Jacksonville playing so much man coverage, like Brady just leaning into that early and throwing Shakir on these over routes and underneath and mesh stuff, and then taking advantage of Kincaid in one-on-one situations, using some motion and some shifts to help him create some leverage and give him some space. And then the big one really was Cook. It just seemed like whenever they wanted something big, they were like, all right, let's just send Cook up the sideline. Let's just send him on a rail route from different looks, and we'll just send him. And he just kept beating linebackers left and right. And what's also nice about that, I know it was on the very first one for sure. It was Matt Collins kind of running interference, no pun intended, to get in the way of the linebacker to make him go underneath so Cook could get over the top. But just the positioning from these guys left and right was really well done. The touchdown to Keon Coleman, you're in a 6 offensive lineman set. You're in a heavy look, reduced formational width. You're inviting guys into the box and single high, and then you go play action on a crosser, which cooks that, no pun intended. But when you see it from the all-22, the angle at which Matt Collins and Coleman intersected in the middle of the field is really what set that up, because that corner on Coleman is forced to go underneath a little bit as he's trailing him, because if he goes over the top of him a little bit, he's either going to run into Hollins or run into the corner that's trailing Hollins. There was just It was good design and scheme and then individual execution from the wide receivers tonight. And again, I think it's another credit to Brady, because I thought a lot of the ceiling for the offense this year would be dependent upon Brady pulling the right levers and pushing the right buttons at the right time. And I think tonight was a great example of it, just leaning into Cook and Shakir and Kincaid, knowing what Jacksonville was going to do, involving them in man beater concepts, and then still involving the rest of the guys, Allen being the conductor of all of it. And just again, and we get another example of why it's so hard to kind of defend this offense, because you don't know where the ball's going.
Yeah. I mean, we added in the top 3 receivers. I have no idea if it ended this way, but in the third quarter, Mike Clay sent out a tweet that, this Bills offense is a powerhouse. Josh Allen is unreal, because the top 2 receivers in snaps were Matt Collins and Marcus Valdes-Scantling.
Yep.
So it's just unbelievable how they're able to utilize all the guys here. Aaron, on the defensive side of the ball, I don't even know where to start on the credit. AJ Epinesa had a sack. Casey Toohill had a sack and a fumble recovery, and probably could have had a fumble return for a touchdown if he was able to pick it up a little bit cleaner. Kyer Elam cost us a 50 burger. He had a pick 6 towards the end too that he could have taken back. Von Miller had his 3rd sack in 3 games. Javon Solomon
he almost had a
sack
couple too. Vaughn was close on a couple others. Yeah. He was right there.
He flushed him on another one of the 4th downs too.
Yeah, that Von Miller sack too. I think that was the same drive he got the left tackle to jump off twice.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because that guy knew Vaughn was coming and wanted to get a jump on him, and that is the Von Miller effect right there. But this iteration of the Buffalo Bills, I think, is what Sean McDermott has been talking about to the media for years. I think the media took it the wrong way of like, oh, this is a conservative guy that just wants to run the ball all the time, but he wants to win in the trenches. How many games have we talked about? Every time the Bills are losing a game, Greg, we come on the post-game show here and we're like, well, they got pushed off the ball. They got beat in the trenches. You guys just spent a bunch of time and Louis Riddick talking about the Bills having one of the best offensive lines in football. I think it's also on the defensive side of the ball too. I think they're winning in the trenches. And dude, in the NFL, whether it's a team like this and you come out and you blow them out, or it's a grind of a game, if you win the trenches for 4 quarters, you're going to win most of these games. I think Sean McDermott has finally built up these lines on both sides to be able to do that. And again, it is an everybody eats mentality on that side of the ball and on the defensive line. And they've been trying to build that for years. And I think they're finally got the right personnel to do that. But then guys that need to get a lot of credit that I have some plays checked off that I want to go back and look at is Rasul Douglas and Christian Benford. I've said a bunch of times, this is the best cornerback duo we've had here in Buffalo, but it might be one of the best in the NFL. right now. Like those two dudes, like, and it's not just pass breakups, it's run support. It's coming up and hitting guys in screens and tackling. They're doing it all. And they're almost like mirrors of each other. Like they are locking down, like Christian Benford's becoming a lockdown corner, and Rasul Douglas was like already right there, and it's locking down the edges, man. And that's tough for an offensive coordinator. Sorry, an ambulance just went by.
Are you under arrest, Aaron? Do you need representation?
No.
Go. You have William Matara's phone number. Call Bill.
Yeah, no.
Call Bill. Tell him you need representation immediately.
Bill. But no, I mean, how hard is that, Anthony? You know, how hard is that for an offensive coordinator if you can't attack the sidelines at all and get your best players involved in the game, because these guys are shutting it down left and right.
Yeah.
And then big shout out to the safety play, because it was such a position in flux this summer, and I thought that would be something that teams attack, especially like in a week like this, attacking the middle of the field, the linebackers, and kind of going at guys like DeMar Hamlin and stuff like that. But they have not been a vulnerability. Like they're not making time. Like DeMar came up with the interception tonight. He's making a lot of nice tackles, wraps all over the place. They're not doing anything special, but nobody's getting explosive plays on this team, and that's got a lot to do with the safety play right now.
I was nervous about Brian Thomas Jr. tonight, and he flashed on my screen a couple of times, but they kept him contained the entire time. And I know there was one snap, I think it was Riddick who was talking about the Carl Jones. I apologize, I'm not sure which TV station he's with now.
He just transitioned to a different one. Yeah,
he just changed to a new one. But he put out one that there was a route that it was Brian Thomas Jr. and you had just absolutely picture perfect teach tape technique of how he was trailing, keeping an eye in the backfield, keeping a hand and position with Brian Thomas Jr., breaking it up at the end. And you're talking about a guy who is a big, strong, fast 4'3" athlete. And Christian Benford doesn't have to be, because he has perfect technique, perfect footwork, keeps his eyes clean, is just in that position the entire time, stays in phase, doesn't let him stack him or get up on top of him. And you're able to make a play on a ball like that with a big, strong athlete that we're going to hear a lot about. We're going to hear Brian Thomas Jr.'s name a lot in the coming years. That's a special dude. And now that's 3 weeks in a row of Marvin Harrison Jr., of Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Brian Thomas Jr., and Christian Benford just is not phased in these matchups. It's unbelievable.
It's amazing, but honestly, like one of the most impressive things to me is when a cornerback will come up and pop you, right? Like those guys don't want contact for the most part league wide, and they don't want to come up and run support. And both Douglas and Benford thrive in it, and I think they like to come up and give you that contact and pop you, and that's a rare thing. The Bills have done a really good job of finding these types of guys, and it's so important to this type of defense. If you're going to play zone, you're going to play the way the Bills play, your defensive backs need to be a big part of run support, and they do it. And I think that's probably the most underrated aspect. And there was a few plays tonight where they just came up, made tackles, not allowing any type of yards after catch, and that's a rare thing, man. I loved Trey White in his time here. I could not stand watching Trey White try to come up and make an open field tackle. Now you have Christian Benford and Rasul Douglas. I can't think of a time where they've gotten beat open field like that, where they've come up and made the tackle. So it's just a really nice duo there. And then, Cam Lewis flying all around the field, Ingram flying all around the field, man. Like Sean McDermott is just getting the most out of the least out of this roster left and right. It's almost going to be to the great. If it wasn't for Von Miller still getting sacks, Greg, I'm almost to the point where I don't want to pay defensive players ever again, because I think Sean McDermott could just.
It is pretty crazy. It just keeps like churning them out. It doesn't matter where you pick them up, where you sign them, where you draft them, who you trade for. They just keep being able to make it work here. Let's start going through the order here. I have a surprise how each of these first 5 drives ended, but the Jags won the toss and deferred. So the first time the Bills were going to open with possession, they had been able to have the double dip opportunity in each of the first 2 games. They pretty much extinguished any concern with that being a problem here in this game, because it was 34-3 by the time halftime came. But they came out and it was super clean, to come out. Very first play, James Cook takes around the end for 19 yards. We had an incompletion to Kincaid, although it was a nice throw. Then we get back to a 3-yard run, which is the first time they ran the ball in second and long, the first time all season. And immediately angry, and it just made me upset. They come back and run again with Cook, and we get to 4th and 3, and my mind goes to, see, this is why you don't freaking run the ball on 2nd and long, because now we got to punt because we're there. And the offense stayed out there, and they came back and were there at 4th and 3 and get the ball to Khalil Shakir on a really, really nice help me, Anthony. What's it like? It's like a boomerang orbit motion where they bring him around, and when Shakir crosses behind Allen,
and he stops and then goes back.
And
yeah,
then
it's
he
like
stops
it's
and goes.
Yeah, it's an orbit with a return motion.
Yeah, like I don't even know exactly what to call it back out there, but it's just enough to get the linebackers or nickel to talk about, wait, are you handing him off? And then when he pivots back the other way, either you get caught up in the muck or you miss the handoff to go back, and he was wide open and took it for 12 yards. And just seeing that kind of aggression in those moments, and then you go right back, you get a pass to Knox, you get another one to Samuel. They're moving down, they get themselves in position, and James Cook goes right in for a touchdown. And it was just a nice, clean, easy drive. Josh Allen actually ran on a draw where he slid early, didn't put himself in danger, and it was just right down the field. And then Tyler Bass's extra point got blocked. Not a perfect ending to the drive, but a little anxiety inducing, but just a really, really nice, clean drive down the field where they were in command or in control the majority of the time. Aaron, what was the reaction to the Bass block in the stadium?
Yeah, actually, I was gonna say probably the only like blemish of the night, right? Like, because it was so exciting to get the touchdown, and then everybody's like all pumped up, and then Bass has that block. The weird thing is at the stadium we get a different broadcast. We get the in-stadium broadcast, so you don't see. Nobody knew if it was what happened last week, where I got on the postgame show and was certain it was a block on the missed kick, and it wasn't. And so nobody was really sure. It looked definitely like the ball ricocheted like a block would, but we didn't get a replay at the stadium, and it just like the energy just deflated for a second. It was just like, okay, it's 6 instead of 7. But obviously that doesn't last for long, and the energy's right back, and then we don't stop.
So, and they come right back, and they get into a spot where we have them in good position. They, get a 1 yard run, 2 incompletions quickly, and it's a quick 3 and out. We're like, oh, okay. I was, we have a history of. I kind of brace myself that the scripted plays, the team's going to move their way down the field because that's just what we do. Like, it takes us a minute. We kind of get our bearings. We get a feel for what they're going to call, but we always give up some stuff on the opening drive and their scripted plays. It's just kind of how things normally work. So to get the 3 and out, I was like, oh, well, this could be fun. And they come right back, and boom, it's straight down the field again. You get 10 yards to Samuel. You get a 28-yard chunk to Kincaid. Looking really good, where he kind of had the long crosser. He was kind of going upfield a little bit further, and takes it for a little bit afterwards. And just, again, this one was less running. It was really Josh dicing it up the whole way down the field and keeping them off balance, where I don't know what they were going to expect, and then goes right back to Kincaid in the end zone. And that when that drive ended and they go through, I was like, oh, this could be a fun night here. And it really started looking like he was cooking.
Yeah, these first 2 drives, I think really and it's hard to say this because it was still in the first quarter and so early. I feel like both of these first offensive drives for the Bills sucked the soul out of the Jags, and especially coupled with that 3 and out for the Jacksonville offense. Both of these drives were over 65 yards. They were each over 5 minutes. So you've got 2 drives that take up 10 minutes of that first quarter. They both end in touchdowns. They both have 4th down conversions. You talk about the really nice play to Kincaid on that second drive. It's 3rd and 3. They short motion Kincaid in from the boundary to create some leverage against safety Antonio Johnson. He runs that corner route. He's wide open. Allen hits him. And then on that touchdown, Allen's got all this time. He runs out the front door. He's rolling to his right. He's very comfortable throwing to his right. Kincaid comes from all the way from the other side of the field. And because I didn't see it pre-snap at first. I had looked away. I didn't know if Kincaid was on Allen's right, saw that Allen was scrambling, was like, oh, let me put my foot in the ground and come back towards Josh. Kincaid came from all the way from the other side of the field. So it's just pure, like, not to boil it down anything too simplistic, that's just pure hustle. Like, one team has guys that are hustling, the other team doesn't. Kincaid runs from all the way from the other side of the field to get into Josh's field of vision. Allen hits him right there. And I think all of that really, like, you could just see, I felt like right from there, the Jags were like, this sucks. We want to go home. Like, we don't want to be here. Like, this isn't fun. Like, they're getting fourth down stuff. Guys are wide open. They're getting yards after catch. That was a huge piece coming into this game too. The Jags had allowed 329 yards after catch coming into week 3, which was the most in the league. But a ton of that is happening against the Dolphins with how they are. And you're like, okay, so maybe that's skewed a little bit. And the Bills were 16th in yards after catch coming into this game. Again, 2-week sample size, yada, yada. But the Bills are getting all these completions. Guys are running and breaking tackles. Khalil Shakir is that pinball wizard like you talked about. And Allen's finding he's either got time or he's making time. Those two drives together, I feel like, really just killed Jacksonville. And it just seemed like they didn't want to play ball anymore after that.
So, Aaron, I know you got to run here. Get yourself home safely. Any final thoughts for the folks before you take off?
No, enjoy it. I hope you guys continue on the party here the rest of the night. And yeah, traffic's opening up and my phone's dying. So I'm going to get out of here. And then I'm going to get home and I'm going to scroll the fun memes and stuff. So I'll see all you guys on the internet after this. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Anthony, for filling in for me tonight. And have fun, guys.
Drive safe.
Appreciate it, brother. Oh, so, they go through and this was, they're up 13-0, and Jacksonville puts together probably their best drive of the game here, where they're moving their way down the field. And like, all right, maybe they're going to kind of throw some haymakers back at us. A couple nice ones to Brian Thomas Jr., where again, he's scaring the crap out of me every time he touches the ball. He's just so big and explosive as he's moving. And they get down here and you really get in a spot where he's taken some shots into the end zone and he misses Etienne on one where he could have got it. And then, tries to get it to Gabe in the front corner of the end zone. And, all of a sudden they hold and they kick. And I was like, all right, well, that's kind of deflating, because that was the first time they really got a little something going. And I'm going to call this one my West Herr drive of the game, because I think, there wasn't a ton of time here where there was much of the game in question. And this is really what it, to me, was kind of the nail in the coffin. So they get the ball back. Ty Johnson has a nice return, brings it out 32 yards, immediately go to Knox. They get a run with Cook, then another little short dump off to Cook and keep moving up the field. Then another swing out to James Cook for 17 yards. And this is one where they came in with the jumbo set and really had some nice play action where they thought they were going to run the ball and get themselves into position here. Then when they get to the point, you really had kind of the smartest play of the night in my mind from Josh. They're in 3rd and long. Josh scrambles and gets up there and ends up sliding to, again, kind of protect himself, and is able to keep it under control, and then hits Keon Coleman for his first career touchdown, one of hopefully many here in a Bills uniform, but a really just pretty throw, puts him in position, goes up and gets the ball, and is able to, get his first score as a Buffalo Bill, and ultimately just kind of, put the Jags out of their misery here and put the game out of reach, and they continued to increase it from there. But just the combination of answering Jacksonville's first legitimate drive to kind of say, hey, you're not getting back into this, and adding in that it was Keon Coleman's first career touchdown, I thought that was worth celebrating as my West Herr drive of the game.
Yeah, and I think that further, like you said, kind of the nail in the coffin aspect, and just really putting the Jags in a spot like mentally where it just looked like they were so defeated. You have that drive, like you talk about, they get the field goal, 14 plays, 47 yards. They take up 7 minutes and 46 seconds, and it just ends with a field goal. You've got it.
So deflating.
So deflating. You've got it 1st and 10 at the Buffalo 24. You only gain a yard. You have an incompletion on 2nd and 9 and 3rd and 9. You kick that field goal. Buffalo marches down and scores a touchdown again. And then the next drive is the one where Trevor Lawrence has Brian Thomas wide open, and he just sails it right to Hamlin, and it was done. Like, it just that, and that Bills offensive drive that you narrated was in between those two failed Jags offensive drives. And I really felt like right then and there, I was like, okay, this is done. And again, like that drive of the game here was really just a lot of easy buttons. Everything felt succinct and almost simple. And that touchdown, I spoke about it earlier, just it feeds into the whole aspect of why running the football matters. And for the people who just throw out, well, like, yeah, but like the efficiency metrics say passing the ball is better, so you shouldn't run too much. Like, I understand that, but forget that for just a brief second. Running the football opens up the pass game, and it opens up all these other avenues. The Bills' run game being successful and being a threat is the reason you bring in a sixth offensive lineman, something they're very good at, running out of those looks. And it's the reason Jacksonville matches with more heavier personnel on their side of the ball. It's the reason they bring a safety down and they're showing that single high look, and then you can just go play action. And you, like we talked about it earlier, Coleman and Hollins, they run their routes to really good depth. Coleman gets underneath, is wide open, or not necessarily wide open, but open because Brown has to undercut because of Hollins' depth. Also, what's a nice piece on that one, Cook does just enough because of the protection and the run angle. Cook ends up one-on-one with Eric Armstead on that touchdown, and Armstead isn't just fully running through him because he has to process run to pass. Once he realizes it's a pass, Cook does just enough, but it's that play action piece. If you're sitting there just going, well, we're going to block James Cook, we're going to put James Cook on Eric Armstead one-on-one in a known passing down, you're dead in the water. You can do it on play action because Armstead has to play run to pass, and it was such a good culmination of like, this is what the offense is when they're cooking. The ability to generate an explosive through the air out of a 6 offensive lineman set with a condensed formation and reduced formational width. Like, that's what this offense is. And it's a beautiful thing because it's so hard to stop.
Yeah. Well, and it was the second time that drive earlier on, leaning into the tendency, jumbo set, 6th offensive lineman, first down. The Bills run on that. We do it all the time. And he did it on the earlier one that ended up swinging out to James Cook for the 17-yarder, getting them down. There was another one, 1st and 10, 6 linemen on the field, and he swings it out to Allen to Cook because they bit on the play action. It just was really, really sweet to be able to go through there. You mentioned it, the next drive, Jacksonville has the ball. They're moving down here. And I'm talking with guys from work as we're doing this. And we had been talking about Trevor Lawrence beforehand, and that, talking about the Josh Allen Cape plays, and that when he makes mistakes, it's because he's trying too hard. And that when Lawrence makes mistakes, it's these weird ones where, like, what was he doing? Like that's not a Superman play. You're not having to be a hero on that play. He just has these weird, mind-boggling misses. And when that play happened, the two of them looked at me. I was like, that's what I'm talking about. Like Brian Thomas Jr. wide open on a crosser, your best athlete with a head of steam, and you sail it 5 yards over his head and give DeMar Hamlin a lollipop. Just here you go. Just an easy, free interception. That's the stuff that really stops me from understanding Trevor Lawrence. Like, he has so much capability, but when he misses, it's really, really bad. And the Bills capitalize. They come right back. James Cook, 5 yards, go right back to Shakir for another one. This was one of the pinball plays where actually Foye Oluokun got hurt on that play and had to come off the field. And then you get the one where Josh finds Khalil Shakir as he's coming across, and he works his way up the sideline, keeps his feet in bounds, takes contact on a couple plays, and somehow gets in the end zone on a 27-yard touchdown, and really puts together a special day for himself. That, with everybody spreading it around, he still ended up with 6 catches for 72 yards and a touchdown. And this is probably the best example of just his ability to create separation, create after he gets the ball, good body control, keeping his feet in bounds, and making Josh Allen look good with another beautiful play.
And again, it's funny. I'm like trying to play it back in my head, and there's so many times where they were just beating man coverage, and I'm like, wait, was it that one or was it this other one? Yeah, they're just taking advantage of the Jags playing man, and Shakir runs away from his dude or went a crosser over the middle. And I think this one was completed under 10 yards. I think Allen threw this, or it was like caught it like 8 or 9 yards, and then Shakir houses it and does the rest. So you're getting some of that yards after catch, but it's Allen taking advantage of what's there. Like, okay, here's the open guy. Let me put it in a good place and let that guy go do the rest. And you also know too, like, okay, if it's completed short on that 3rd down or whatever, okay, cool. It's 4th and 1. We'll sneak it, or we'll do something and we can go for it. Like, just this offense really playing on the front foot for the entirety of this game. And all of these things clicking, Josh Allen doing Josh Allen stuff, the play action pass, delivering some chunks, the run game, the yards after the catch, the formations and the advantages, all of these, again, buttons being pushed and levers being pulled, allowed the Bills to stay on the front foot, even when they're just, complete and simple stuff underneath. It's getting, you complete a ball at 4 yards, it's a gain of 9, or it's a gain of 10, or in this instance, to Shakir, throw it underneath for 10, and it's a touchdown for 27. Just continuing to stay on that front foot and put the Jags defense in pain consistently.
Well, and they come right back. The Jags are now reeling. It's 27-3. They're really, really in difficult position. But hey, it's 2:04 left. They're getting the ball coming out of halftime. They've kind of, hey, maybe we got a shot here to get ourselves back in this. And not only are they not able to do that, they do get a first down. They do initially get a first down, but then incomplete pass, and then incomplete to Etienne, incomplete where Brendan Strange drops the ball. So now they've run barely any time off the clock. And then we send, obviously we don't blitz very much, but now we send 2 DBs, and I think it's Cam Lewis and Jamarcus Ingram both meeting at the quarterback. And Jamarcus Ingram cleans it up for the sack, and the Bills take a timeout, and all of a sudden it's, we're going to get the ball back with 1:25 to go. And they give the ball back to the Bills, where it's already kind of a party atmosphere and everything that's there. And now we go right back down the field again, and they, take a deep shot to Marcus Valdes-Scantling, where we had offsides, and that was one where it's the free play that, Aaron Rodgers always makes famous when you catch a team offsides. And a lot of times they don't let you run the play, but the defense kind of stopped enough that it wasn't, unabated to the quarterback. So he was able to take the deep shot. That would have been a fun one if he would have got to connect on the freebie, but they don't, and they come right back again. Josh hits Kincaid for 7 yards. And then the one where we were joking, where he sits there and pats and just hangs out in the backfield, sitting there in the pocket forever, and hits Ty Johnson for a touchdown. And all of a sudden, it's 34-3. And like the Jags thought they were going to be able to get themselves back into this game. And they technically tried to run a couple plays at the end here, but Trevor Lawrence literally ends up throwing the ball away on 4th down. And it was like one of the kind of sadder moments I can remember, that like, dude, you just threw the ball away on 4th down 34-3. And it just was, I couldn't believe what I was watching in this first half.
That drive, that Jacksonville one you're talking about, 5 plays, 3 yards, 52 seconds taken off the clock. And then what makes it worse, you get a good punt. You get a 50-yard punt to the Buffalo 17, but then Codrington returns it to the Bills 36 for 19 yards. So you take up less than a minute, you give the ball back to the Bills, but you kind of put them inside their own end. And then Codrington brings it almost to their own 40. And
makes it a net 31-yard punt,
which is nothing. And then you get that shot on 1st down because Walker's offsides. And we saw this a bunch, like offsides and illegal formation stuff, just more things. Riddick was pointing it out nonstop, just like kind of stuff that indicates your head isn't in the game and you're not prepared or you're not focused, yada, yada. And the Bills marched down. So to put it into perspective, the Jags went 5 plays, 3 yards in 52 seconds. The Bills on that next drive, scoring a touchdown, went 5 plays, 64 yards in 53 seconds. So same amount of
both
plays.
Both drives, 5 plays. Both plays 52 or 53 seconds. One was a punt, one was a touchdown.
Yeah, one was a 3-yard drive, one was a 64-yard drive with a tutty at the end. Like it just, everything just, it just felt like, it really felt like the Jags were cursed. Even what was the play, who got popped over the middle and the ball came out? Somebody fumbled and then Kincaid fell right on it. And I was like, okay, you guys got, that was such a Bills moment if I'd ever seen it. Like, oh, never mind. They got it back. Like they just, everything was just swinging for the Bills and swinging against the Jags. And again, a lot of it was due to what the Bills were doing. And it just, that was the point too. Like when he threw it away at the end of the half, I too was just like, oh man, like I just like, that was like, this isn't even like fun anymore.
Yeah, like seriously, it was like taking the fun out of it. We don't have to go through drive by drive in the second half. The Jags did open up with what ended up being their best drive of the game. They opened up with an 8-play, 70-yard touchdown drive. got a little self-respect back in it. There's kind of a I don't think they called DeMar Hamlin for unnecessary roughness on a hit for Christian Kirk that I didn't think was
I don't think
whatever. It's not a big deal, but they go down, and then we have a nice answer for the Bills, and it wasn't a touchdown drive. But again, Josh had a nice scramble where he got out of bounds. Another nice chunk run for James Cook. We're able to kind of keep it going downfield, and had a chance. We would have probably been able to, convert with Dalton Kincaid, but couldn't complete the pass there, and ended up, giving Tyler Bass a chance to rebuild a little bit of confidence in more of his kicking. And then, multiple times the Jags tried to get down there, and the Bills had a little bit of the bend but don't break, but were getting pressure on Trevor Lawrence. The one Von Miller literally ended with a sack where he scared the crap out of their tackle into jumping offsides twice, and then still got the sack on the fourth down play. Got them to go for it again on the following drive. And just the defense, like Aaron said earlier, the offense deserves a ton of credit. We put up 47 points. We were pretty dominant in this game. There's going to be a lot of very pretty nice EPA and efficiency stats. 6.5 yards per play is a ridiculous average to be able to run 25 first downs when we only ran 60 plays. There's going to be a lot of really pretty things out of this game. Two for two on fourth downs. It was just a lot of really good play. The defense is going to be undersold in what they came up with here. The fact that it's going to be 5 sacks, held them to 3.5 yards per play. It's going to officially show two turnovers, but when you get them to turn over on downs 4 times, in my book, that's 6 turnovers, because the defense caused the offense to get the ball back 6 times, not 2 times. Just a really, really strong finish. Was there anything that stood out to you in the second half that you wanted to focus on?
No, really just them being able to continue to play. And again, I know Jacksonville's been disjointed, and Buffalo has had Miami's number, and then Tua gets knocked out. But just watching this Bills defense continue to play good Bills defensive football despite all the changes. And I'm talking on and off the field. Like, Babich is the new DC, which, he's pretty much in lockstep with McDermott, so fine, okay, but it's still a new DC. You got a new defensive line coach. You got a new linebackers coach. You got a new corners coach. You lose your all-pro linebacker before the season starts. Then you lose your other starting linebacker early in this season. You are without your all-pro slot corner for a majority of this season. You have 2 new safeties. All of these pieces. And the Bills are out there, like, I just keep waiting for some team to be like, well, we're going to take advantage of Balin Spector and Dorian Williams. And it just doesn't happen. And I'm so interested to dig into the all-22 and see what coverages were they running. Why were the Jags not going to the middle of the field or in between the numbers early on to attack them? What were the Bills doing from a coverage standpoint? How were they marrying with the pass rush? But I think so much of it stems from Douglas is very solid on one side. Christian Benford is very solid on another. And then the Bills have been doing a really good job disguising coverage and changing things pre to post snap on quarterbacks and making them think A, and then they flip it to B on the snap. And so their eyes are darting left and right. And then you're pairing that with some good pressure up front at the right times and the right situations. They just continue to play good situational football and like really just, I would be happy if they were only giving up like 20 points a game. So I'd be like, well, listen, they've got 3 important dudes that are missing. They've got some new pieces that are kind of coming in. And it's just like, no, they're just going to keep playing really good football. And then now you get a different defensive test next week in the Ravens, and then we'll see what they do against Houston and the Jets.
Honestly,
and all these groups.
The Ravens will be the ultimate test early on because they do go 2 tight ends so much. They do represent such a threat with the read option stuff that they do with Lamar and Derrick Henry. They're so focused on the middle of the field. That really is going to be a great test for us. So we'll get to that. I mean, obviously, I know you and Eric will do some fantastic work on the film room for this game, and looking forward to what you have on Disguise coverage. Aaron and I will do the same thing. We have Cole on to preview this Ravens game. But, for tonight, it really does, what you just brought up, the fact that in 3 games, we've given up 48 points, so averaging 16 points a game that we're giving up. We've scored 112, so we're averaging 37 points a game. We're averaging a 37-16 victory in 3 games. So already have a 64 point differential, which is, clearly the best in the league, even ahead of the Saints and the Vikings and the other couple undefeated teams and the teams who put up some ridiculous stats early on, like the Saints, even though with their 1 loss. The Bills have obviously put their in. It's early. There's no trophies given out in September. There's no awards given out here. Josh Allen is obviously the front runner for the MVP and has been played at an MVP level multiple times over the last couple of years. But all that will only matter if they're able to maintain this, if they're able to sustain. Doesn't have to be this level, but sustain a high level of play. And I think we're going to get a good feel for it here, because the next 3 games, they're on the road. They're at Baltimore, at Houston, at the New York Jets. 3 of the top teams in the conference, 3 teams we will be fighting for playoff seeding and division seedings with. We're going to know a lot more here in the next 3 games of really what this team is fully made of, how this new balanced approach is going to work on offense, how the new scheming and timing and layering of when to use the play calls, how this kind of dominance we've seen at the line of scrimmage on both sides is going to play with some higher level teams that have been very talented, but a couple of them have shown some flaws along the line of scrimmage. That could be an area that each of these teams can be taken advantage of. What are some of your final thoughts for the folks here on this game, on why they should be excited and why you're excited about what's coming up?
Be excited because of the offense and everything kind of coming into plan and falling into place. I spent so much of this offseason diving into film of the Rams and the Lions and the Texans and these teams that were reducing their formational width and leaning into diversity with either 11 personnel or 12 personnel. And the Lions and Rams were 2 teams that I settled on because of the body types that they had at wide receiver. And, the Lions were a great example because everyone thinks, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Their receiver with the 2nd most snaps last year was Josh Reynolds. Their receiver with the 3rd most snaps was Donovan Peoples-Jones. They went 11 with these bigger bodied receivers who could function as blockers, but also as pass catchers. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, for as amazing of a pass catcher and route runner he is, he's a dog as a blocker. So the Bills offense, they traded away Stephon Diggs, but they moved into this direction of being in 11 and 12, where they can go spread and pass it or run out of it. They can go condensed and mash you or also pass out of it. They're in this world with their 11 and 12 personnel groups where they can access more of the menu without having to turn the page. And they are built for today's NFL, for all this stupid discourse about too high coverages and it's capping explosives and this and this and this. If you're a Bills fan, you don't care, because the Bills are built to beat that. The way you pull teams out of those too high looks is what the Bills did on the Keon Coleman touchdown. You make a team be like, we got to bring a safety down in the box, because guess what? You can't run too high safeties if you got to bring a safety down into the friggin' box. The Bills are built to succeed offensively in today's NFL. This was the big shift that they made this offseason. It was bigger than just, Diggs is kind of a problem. They made a philosophical shift in terms of their identity from an offensive standpoint. And right now they are seeing very nice, a nice return on that investment and that schematic shift. And in theory, they should just get better. Maybe we'll see some bumps along the way as teams get more tape on them. But with everything they're doing and all the dressing and presentation combined with the design and layering and play calling, I'm very hopeful that this offense can continue at a successful clip the rest of the year. And then the defense, they're more than holding their own. And as we go forward, they should just be getting their best players still aren't there, really. Although I think Benford is up in that conversation. Rousseau is as well. In theory, they should just be getting better overall as a team, which is a really exciting thing.
Yeah, because you're talking about incredibly valuable depth and experience for Dorian Williams, for Valen Spector, for Cam Lewis, for Jamarcus Ingram. But then you're adding back in, Terrell Bernard. You're adding back in Taron Johnson and maybe at some point adding back in Matt Milano. And to think that you might be getting those kind of players back with this kind of performance is just really, really exciting.
It's almost like getting like everybody every year is always, and I hate this because the Red Sox ownership, the Red Sox ownership every year, because the Red Sox always have so many injuries, they try and make you think like, well, we don't need to trade for anyone because so-and-so is coming back in August. It's like, that doesn't freaking count. But for the Bills, it's actually like real. It's like having another trade deadline where you're bringing in dudes, and it's a fun thing. It's real for them.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. This has been a ton of fun. It was great to have you back on here with us tonight. Appreciate you jumping on with Aaron, getting to go, glad hand with all the fancy people in the suite at the stadium there tonight. But this has just been a ton of fun to be able to go through this kind of celebration, this kind of fun with the team. This is going to be a really exciting time. You're going to see a lot of national excitement about the Bills. Soak all that stuff up. There's going to be a lot of great content out there. Make sure to enjoy every single bit of it. It's going to be a lot of fun. But this has been a ton of fun for us here tonight. On behalf of our awesome producer, Chris Kepner, and Aaron Quinn, who's driving himself home tonight, along with Anthony Prohaska, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.